Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Now, Anakin Skywalker is the focal point of the prequel trilogies. Therefore, it's very interesting to look at the various events that surrounded him and take a look at how things would have changed in the galaxy had certain things gone differently. One of the early defining moments of Anakin Skywalker's legacy was his accidental activation of a Royal Naboo security force fighter that he was trying to hide in. This led to him joining the orbital portion of the Battle of Naboo. Unbeknownst to young Annie, on the ground below him in the palace, his future was being decided in a tense duel between the deadly Sith Lord Darth Maul and two Jedi, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi Wan Kenobi. Qui-Gon Jinn had not only saved Anakin from slavery, he had also brought the young boy to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant prior to the battle. He presented Anakin as the Chosen One, a figure from one of the famous Jedi prophecies. Anakin had the highest midichlorian count any of the Jedi Council had ever seen, yet the young boy was deemed too old and too attached to his mother to begin training. Despite Anakin's rejection, Qui-Gon essentially defies the Jedi Order and decides to train the young boy himself anyway. That was his plan, at least until Darth Maul gutted him with a lightsaber. Now what happens next is probably one of the biggest upsets in Star Wars dueling history. The young Padawan Obi Wan Kenobi somehow gets the better of the Sith Lord. The reality is, as much as I love the overachieving Obi Wan Kenobi, he shouldn't have won here. Not this early in his career as a Jedi, and especially not in the way he did. Darth Maul, in my opinion, was one of the most talented Sith swordsmen out there in the galaxy. He had trained from birth with a specific focus on lightsaber combat and formed 7, a dark side power technique considered the deadliest lightsaber style. Obi-Wan was just a Padawan at the time, and his strengths, if he had any, was probably Form 3, a defensive style that was designed to tire out an overly aggressive opponent and find openings for counterattacks. Instead of relying on his defensive strength, though, Obi-Wan surprises Maul with an aggressive flurry of offensive strikes, but ultimately is disarmed. Darth Maul really didn't need to hesitate to kill Obi-Wan Kenobi, and so in this scenario he does exactly that and ends Obi-Wan's life, leaving Anakin Skywalker in quite the predicament. It's like being recruited for a D1 college to play football in by the offensive coordinator and the wide receiver coach, but then finding out that they've both been stabbed by a crazy madman with tattoos all over his face. All of a sudden, your high school grades aren't good enough to get you into that college, and you're kind of screwed. So, what happens now that Anakin has no sponsor within the Jedi Order? That is the what-if scenario we're going to be talking about today, but before we begin, a word from our sponsor for this video, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid Shadow Legends is the premier mobile RPG game on the App Store right now. One of the reasons why it is so great is because it has some of the highest production value in the mobile gaming industry. For instance, all 450 characters in the game are uniquely animated using real-life actors in their in-house motion capture studio. This is combined with a satisfying gameplay loop that allows you to build an elite team of champions and send them through a smorgasbord of dungeons, missions, and arena battles. You can battle your way through the campaign in a single-player quest for new characters, armor, and items, or step into a PvP skirmish and test just how well your squad will perform against other players. Now, when designing the perfect team, it's important to have balance. You're going to want to have tanks for defensive reasons and DPS guys like magic-wielding wizards who can nuke the enemy with massive spells. In the latest update for Raid Shadow Legends, the developers have spent a lot of time making PvP even more challenging and competitive by rebalancing champions and adding the Forge, a place where you can start crafting new artifacts for your A squad. Now, if this sounds like the kind of game you want to play, check out the description below. We have a special link for new players. You can download the game for free, and you'll get 100,000 silver, 50 gems, 10 mystery shards, and 1 free champion, the Hex Weaver. This offer will be available for the next 30 days. All of this will be waiting for you here. Alright, thank you so much for your patience. On to the rest of the video. So we know that the Jedi don't really like Anakin as a prospect. He's too old and too weathered by the world and his life experiences. Luckily, Qui-Gon at least gave Anakin a chance by bringing the young boy with him to Naboo, because with his force abilities and natural piloting abilities, Anakin somehow manages to destroy the droid control ship, which basically shuts down the entire droid army, saving the Gungans in Naboo from the Trade Federation. And so while the Jedi Temple on Coruscant is no longer an option for Anakin, all of a sudden Naboo is. Anakin is now a hero on this planet and loved by both species that inhabit it. More importantly, his success is so great that it warrants the attention of the former senator of Naboo, who is now the acting Chancellor of the Republic, Sheev Palpatine. Now, we all know that Palpatine had always had interest in Anakin even before he was born and still in his mother's womb, but he really doesn't make his moves on Anakin until he's a bit older and a teenager, which is a pretty good move because teenagers are extremely crazy, terrifying, they love to rebel against everything, and it's not their fault. I mean, they're full of hormones. We've all been through it, probably, right? Palpatine waited until Anakin was this age to manipulate him against the Jedi Order because that fit in with exactly where a teenage Jedi's mindset would be in the first place. I mean, the last thing a teenager wants to do is be in a dogmatic order which prevents you from, learning about all the really fun stuff you can do with the Force, aka the dark side. But now with the Jedi out of the way, Palpatine could take a much stronger role in Anakin's upbringing. It definitely wouldn't look suspicious for a kindly old statesman like him to adopt or at least mentor the young savior of his home planet. But Palpatine would not be alone in showing interest for young Anakin. Queen Padme Amidala would also be involved to a certain extent. She actually does care about Naboo, far more than Palpatine would, and would also feel indebted to Anakin for his actions. She would also feel indebted to Qui-Gon and Obi Wan for sacrificing their lives to defeat Maul. Well, Palpatine would most likely want Anakin kinda close to him so he can slowly influence him and turn him to the dark side. It wasn't a good idea to bring the youngling back to Coruscant to his new job as Chancellor. There were far too many Jedi hanging around in the halls of the Senate complex, lobbying for control over Kyber crystal mining rights and fighting for the Jedi Order's exemption from child kidnapping and trafficking laws. It would be much safer and less suspicious for Padme Amidala to take care of Anakin and have him stay on Naboo. Now, Padme would probably adapt more of a big sister, if not motherly, role to the young boy. It's a lot harder to develop romantic feelings for a young child that you watch grow up into an adult, unless you're Woody Allen. So I think it's safe to say that Padme and Anakin are no longer going to be, a thing. Now, Padme's first step, because she's not some heartless Jedi, would probably be to send Anakin back to Tatooine with some cash from the royal treasury so he can remove the bomb from his mother's head and free her from slavery. Then Anakin would return back to Naboo, enroll in some classes, and probably live a pretty normal and average life for a child his age. But what about his Force sensitivity? Well, throughout history, there have been plenty of Force sensitives who have neither joined the Sith nor the Jedi and basically learned how to use their abilities on their own. Now, oftentimes individuals who self-train aren't going to be as powerful or well-trained as a Sith or a Jedi, but in some cases, especially in richer families, the families can afford to hire a trainer or a mentor to take a look at their child and guide them towards understanding how to control and use their powers. Palpatine would most likely be involved behind the scenes in finding such a tutor so that Anakin could properly learn the basics of the Force. Oftentimes, these Force tutors were either dark Jedi or gray Jedi, and basically ideologically removed from things. The idea would be to turn Anakin slowly into a well-refined weapon and prepare him for what's to come, but also keep him open-minded and perhaps guide him towards the dark side. Eventually, Anakin will reach the age where he can volunteer for military service and join the Royal Naboo Security Forces, most likely the Space Force, which he most likely already had an honorary position in. During this time, he would learn the basics of starfighter piloting, maintenance, tactics, strategy, and he would probably very quickly rise up into the ranks into a leadership position. Eventually, Anakin will outgrow the Naboo security forces and move on to bigger and better things, which is when Palpatine will emerge and ask the young man to join his private entourage and serve him as a bodyguard and pilot. Anakin, of course, will be delighted to hear about this opportunity. He probably will get very bored on Naboo and restless and will be looking for new adventures. Now, this will happen around the same time as the Battle of Geonosis and the start of the Clone Wars. Palpatine obviously will need more security now that the war has started, and more importantly, he can reveal to Anakin that he is a Sith and offer to train him. Because Anakin hasn't been trained and thrown through the Jedi conditioning program, he'll be a lot less resistant to the idea of becoming a Sith. More importantly, he'll probably have developed a very negative opinion of the Jedi, especially after they basically said he wasn't worthy when he was like 10 years old. Former slaves really do not like being told that they are unworthy. Plus, the only two Jedi who cared about him had been abandoned by the Jedi Order and sent to Naboo to fight a massive droid army without any support. But of course, Palpatine wouldn't just leave things to chance when he reveals himself to Anakin. In Episode 3, he used Anakin's love for Padme to ultimately turn him against the Jedi Order. This time around, it would be even easier to sway the young man. He would simply tell him that he finally found the location of Darth Maul, the individual who killed Anakin's saviors, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi Wan Kenobi. Now, we know for a fact that in the original timeline, even after Maul was cut in half by Obi-Wan, Anakin had built a sparring droid that looked and moved just like Maul. Anakin really loved Qui-Gon Jinn, and he probably also liked Obi-Wan Kenobi as well. So the idea that their murderer was running around free in the galaxy would basically entice him to do some pretty extreme things. Palpatine would then need to explain to Anakin that he would need to train and get strong enough to defeat the powerful Maul. Palpatine would also conveniently explain that Darth Maul was another Sith Lord who he was competing against, and they were totally not in cahoots with one another. This would guide Anakin quickly to the dark side and help him fulfill his Chosen One prophecy, hopefully with all of his limbs attached. Now let me know in the comment section below what you think about this theory. Would Darth Maul defeat Anakin, or would Anakin with limited training be able to overcome the Sith Lord? Anyway guys, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. Thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.